Hello, everybody out there in YouTube land. Welcome to the Week in Geek. It's me, your t-shirted historian, and I'm pretty excited about today, actually. I had to put this interview off once already, but I'm glad that they decided to stick with us and come back again. But we have AllTheRPGS on today. And those of you who missed my first interview with them, you really missed out on something cool. I suggest you go back and watch that one so you can kind of learn a little bit more about them and what they're going to be doing. Today, I'm kind of opening this up to my other panelists who are, of course, people who do live plays, who do paid GMing, who do actual games design and game creation. And, I'm kind of letting the... my betters, I guess, get a chance to field questions and see what these guys are all about. Because honestly, I'm really excited about this. If these guys are serious and can do what they want to do, it's going to mean a lot to us just as a gaming group. I actually say not as a group, but as a whole, swath of individuals who want to get together and game. Because it won't be confined to just Dungeons and Dragons anymore. It'll be Lamentations of the Flame Princess. It'll be Labyrinth Lord. It'll be Drink Cities Without Number. Who knows? It might even be Gore. It might even be it might be Iries. But anyway, all right. How about we get our panelists on and our guests, starting with my ride or die, Grim Jim.
Hello.
Hello, Grim. And we have Mr. Iries, Greg.
Hello.
Hello. We have Victor, the Terminator Judgment.
Ja, hoi iedereen.
And we have the lovely Harmony Ginger joining us today.
Good to be here.
I hope she'll be a regular panelist here, but if not, then hey, I'm still glad to get her on Tuesdays. And here are my guests. We have Sean Schultz and Wade from AllTheRPGS.
Hey guys, thanks for having us on.
Hey.
It's my pleasure. All right, I'm going to do a little bit of rearranging here. So don't mind me.
Always make me dizzy.
No comment on placement or anything, just, trying to level out the playing field so it looks kind of nice. So,
But you need to
those of us who
wait where I am.
Well, those of us who don't want to show our faces should be like off to the side so that, we don't.
I was worried I'd be the only one.
Or actually, maybe I should put Sean in the middle because now, he's like the center guy. There we go.
He is the center guy.
Very nice.
Position of power.
I feel honored.
All right. Well, I'm going to open this up to our panelists. You guys go ahead. I mean,
you guys want me to start by telling you guys what we're doing, and then you guys start asking questions? All right, cool. We're alltherpgs.com. We're trying to build a large community site that is built on top of, let's say, 4 pillars. One is matchmaking. Another one is characters. Another one is e-commerce. And then finally, APIs to get to all that stuff. So that's what we're building. And then threaded throughout that, we have social stuff embedded in that. That's the plan. So that's what we're building. We're super excited. And let me add one more thing, and that is we recognize as we built this that the way to do this is is to really latch onto the creators. The creators mean everything to us. We know it's kind of the old movie, you build it, they will come. If we build great tools for the creators and give you a place for your games, your content to live, and allow people to schedule games off of that stuff, that we will probably be successful. Since, D&D is really big, but they make up, I think the last time I heard it was around 58% of the market. Then there's a bunch of indie games everywhere that make up the rest. Or Pathfinder. Don't get me wrong, Pathfinder is pretty big too.
Yeah.
But but all of that. So that's what we're doing, and I guess that's what we're discussing today.
Nice.
So go on.
No, I just said nice. So
Okay.
go ahead, Ginger.
Right. So I have a question, if you don't mind. Then,
Yep.
you were talking last interview about the focus of this being tools for DMs, and you also compared yourself a little bit to what you're trying to do is make a D&D Beyond type thing for other RPGs.
Mm-hmm.
And my question is, will there be like an on-site library, a place where we can see everything we've purchased from the site? Will we be able to share that with our players? Like, what's that look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first of all, I've taken that idea and written it down because we didn't fully have that idea baked. But that's not a bad thing. That's one of the great things about meeting with you guys is we get to hear all these different perspectives and stuff. But the idea being, yes, you could see everything you have that you've purchased through the site, and you would be able to see your library of items. We hadn't thought about sharing them with your players and things like that, or being able to share them out. Obviously, we have to think through that because of, if I buy a book from Harmony and then I share it with Aries, now he may not have to purchase it. So we got to think it through that. Not because we would lose money, but because the creator might lose money, and that's we got to think through that. But I think it's a great idea because today everybody does that through a bastardized means, right? They put it up on OneDrive or Google Drive or those kind of things and send it out. So, but I think it's a great idea.
It is a functionality that a lot of sites like this have. Like, for example, both D&D Beyond and Roll20, if you own a book, you can share it with your players.
True.
So there is precedent for it. I'm not asking for something like
no, totally get it.
Yeah, that's cool.
Well, and I think the other piece of that too, right, is if you're in an in-person game, once one person kind of has it, everybody has access to it. So that's something else to think of, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in Roll20, it's a subscription feature. Like the higher tier subscription you have, the more players you can share with. So,
yeah,
it's interesting. Like D&D Beyond, it's interesting because they own all their content. That's also one of the negatives to it. Mm-hmm. So you're right. There is precedence for it, but maybe we come up with something like if you are a creator, you can opt into that. You can say, yeah, I allow this to be shared, and I set a sharing limit. I'm brainstorming now, so don't take anything I say there as the way it would be. But I want to make sure I do right by you creators out there. That's basically it.
I like that way of doing that. Like that or a subscription fee makes sense as well for something like that.
Yep. Cool.
One of my questions was not just like being able to share like stuff you bought, but what about like a central location where like the players and the GM and all that stuff can like store notes about like the games you're running? Like it could just be as simple as like some sort of folder system. Like I don't know, but I figured that could maybe be useful and like keep track of your treasure and all that stuff.
Yeah. We, it's funny that you bring that up because we built a campaign system so far, much like D&D Beyond has a campaign system in D&D Beyond, but it's I'm going to go out on a limb. It's kind of a shitty campaign system because it's been the same way for since they came out. They haven't added anything like notes and everything else. So we built a campaign system, and the root of the campaign system that we built is all notes. So in other words, I can add a note to Harmony. I can add 10 notes to Harmony. I can choose that I make one of those notes public, whether I'm the GM or another player. I can make my notes public or private. I can add a note on her character. I can add a note on her equipment list. I can add a note. So I can add notes on NPCs. So as a game master, I can create an NPC. Or as a player in campaigns, I can create an NPC as well. So because you guys know how it is, you walk into a tavern, the GM runs an innkeeper. The GM doesn't give the innkeeper a second thought. the party walks out. But somebody in the group goes, I'm going to create that NPC because that was a really cool innkeeper and I don't want to lose track of it.
Yeah.
Which is great because now the GM thinks to himself, oh, cool. They recorded this this innkeeper. So I'm going to now add notes to that innkeeper. So notes is the baseline of our campaign system. But after your question, Victor, it makes me think, well, why don't I have that throughout the site rather than limited to campaigns, so I can have a private note on somebody? And I can't immediately. I think to myself, I can't make it public. I can't. That wouldn't make sense. But I can have private notes on people. So it's also a quick and easy way to see if another player, say a year later, especially you paid GMs out there, if a player joins your game and suddenly you look at them and you see that you've already attached a note to them. You may not have played with them for a year, but you can see the note on them. So I think that's a really powerful idea. So consider that added to our roadmap as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions from the audience really quick.
Sure.
Actually, Green Dragon and Mercurius would like to know how the platform is going to be monetized. I think we kind of covered that.
We did.
But
I can, yeah, go ahead. Well, I'm sorry, I keep overriding you.
No, but Dane has a pretty decent one here. He says he finds most virtual tabletops don't have a very good soundboard, but he wants to do custom clips and things like that for his soundboard. And we have that same feature here on this too, which is how come we're able to do really cool clips like this.
They're dissolving this thing in a molten salt, and they're doing electrochemistry on it. Why don't they call it molten salt? They want.
I once built a soundboard years ago. This is for a game I did. Boy, that was back in like 2002. But I built a soundboard for a science fiction game, so I know how valuable that is. And I pretty much primarily play with Tailspire nowadays, that VTT, and it drives me nuts that I have no soundboard. We don't have plans to support a soundboard at the moment, although I'm going to add that to our list of potential items there. Because real quick, I don't want anybody to be confused. We aren't building a VTT, but we want to support VTTs. So, and real quick, I'll jump into the other question. We are planning on having a subscription model, but again, we're kind of copying D&D Beyond because it's a proven concept of having a really low subscription model, but it's freemium, where you can have X number of characters, X number of campaigns, X number of whatever for free. You can have this many games running at once. The difference is you can schedule games and do matchmaking. So we'll have to think through that. How many can you have before you have a subscription? Right now, we don't have a limit like that, but that's how that's going to work. And then we've got a few items that if you want to add, we use a partner. Great partner, by the way. I highly recommend them. I don't know if you guys have checked them out. They're called 3D Dice. I think their domain is dddice.com. They're fantastic. I recommend you guys interview them sometime. But they have a system that rolls digital 3D dice, and and you can roll them from our website in your campaign. You can roll them, and it'll roll it in Tailspire or in Roll20 or in D&D Beyond. So you can see it in all those locations roll simultaneously. Great platform, but we want to support them. So if you want to use that in your campaign, you might have to pay us a subscription, $1 a month or whatever the case is, so that we can make sure that we're passing that along to them. They're a great group of people. So that's the path for monetization. Nothing outlandish there. Also, e-commerce. I was telling the T-shirted one here that the other day that we discovered that DM's Guild charges an arm and a leg. I think it's 50% of your revenue.
Yeah.
When we found that out, that was one of the things. That was one of our impetus to building our e-commerce. We're like, that's a bunch of shit. And and I've got something like 30 years of building e-commerce systems. So we're like, let's just build it. Let's build our own, and then we'll take a percentage. That, by the way, we're planning on using Stripe. Stripe will take a percentage, and then we'll take a percentage past that, which covers storage fees of the content and everything else. But we're looking at 10-15% is what we'd take, and that's it. So that kind of summarizes the monetization for, I think it was Diane who asked that. That's about it.
The M's Guild is kind of a special case. I just want to clarify this because I sell on Drive-to-RPG, but the M's Guild, what you get for that 50% is that you can use official Wizards of the Coast properties.
Yeah.
But Drive-to-RPG, that's like the general site where I sell on. They take 30% if you're non-exclusive and 35% or 30% if you're exclusive and 35% if you're non-exclusive. So that's still a fair amount, even for like their general sell whatever site. So.
Yeah, a lot of what you're paying for with DM's Guild is the license to use Wizards content.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So we don't plan on having any in e-commerce. We don't plan on having exclusive content other than if we want to negotiate as a large entity eventually to get a lower cost. So we've talked about that. But what we want to offer eventually in e-commerce is the power to say, I created a custom content that allows that has 1,000 feats. Let's say feats for Dungeons and Dragons, because that's our common vernacular here. But I can then put them into character sheets that my players use and stuff, that kind of thing. We wouldn't charge for that. That would just be as long as it's in the right form. Digital form, etc., then it could feed into that kind of thing. So those are kind of there's more to it than that, but those are kind of our long-term plans of how we might leverage the e-commerce system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So can we go back to the character sheets a little bit? Because I have a lot of questions about the character sheets. You just mentioned that you could get on a character sheet and roll some dice that would come up on, what did you say, Roll20 or Foundry or Fantasy Grounds or something like that. Is that the case? Is that where the API you mentioned in the last interview comes in?
Yeah,
I have a lot of questions about this. So
let's dive into that real quick. Let me clarify with the dice rolling. So the way 3D Dice works is that they have a platform that's an API-driven platform that you as a dungeon master can go out and create an account today, and then you can tie that account to all these different sources. You can tie it to Roll20, everything else. So if you go onto their site and you roll dice on there, and if you tied it to Roll20, if you roll the dice on their site, you'll see them also roll on Roll20, that kind of thing. Same numbers pop up, all that. And then, but what we'll do is that if you associate your account with us, then you go into the campaign, you decide to do rolling on that campaign, whether it's a character sheet or not, then it'll show up on 3D Dice, those same rolls simultaneously. If you have 3 windows open, you'll see it roll across all 3 screens type of thing. Roll20, 3D Dice, and our site. So you'll see that. So that's how that works. As to how characters work on our site, we've got 3 or 4, and I'm using, you'd think I'd know, but I'm still working this out. And I'd love to tell you how we're building the site too in a second. But we have 3 modalities, let's call it, of characters right now. The first one is a generic PDF upload. So what it means is I have the game Stars Without Numbers, let's say, because I know there's some fans here. I have that. Let's say I've given that, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. The owner of that game has uploaded 3 PDFs for characters on that, let's say. Okay. The owner of the game, we actually, if you guys contact us and say, hey, I own this game, we will validate you, much like a Twitter validation without the cost, but we'll validate you, check your identity, make sure that you indeed own that game. And then at that point, you'll be able to upload official PDFs. And as long as those are form fillable PDFs, then when somebody goes in to create a character, they can they'll see the PDF, they can download it, they can fill it out, they can re-upload it. We're working on, that's when I said 3 or 4, that's the other thing we're working on is editing in place rather than downloading and uploading again. But we haven't quite solved that yet. But that's the generic first support for every game system out there. That's the very first one. The second level of support for game systems, which will come later, it's already programmed, but it'll come later, meaning it requires what we call, us nerds in the programming world, a JSON definition, or some people just call it a JSON definition. It sounds almost the same, but it's a definition of all the form fields that go into creating a character. Okay. We don't have this programmed yet, but we want to have it programmed in. Here's the dice associated with specific fields in that, so that you could roll dice on the screen to generate the character in that sense. So that's the next level of support for character sheets. We're going to, by the way, we have a screen built right now where someone can come out and they can form their JSON and then paste it in this field and then test it. And it'll tell you if the form's going to work or not. So we're going to open that up to the community at some point so that they will be able to create these for any game system. So if you've got friends that are programmers, you're a content creator, but you can't program, but you got friends that will, they can create these forms for you. And if anybody knows, by the way, we're not talking about programming with JSON. It's just a definition file. Okay. So that's the next level. And games, by the way, can support all three, all of these levels. There's no cost. There's nothing. If you're a content creator, you can have all three of these methods. So PDF, you also have a form fillable definition file. And the third way is to have a character generator. This is obviously the highest difficulty level in that scope. And we plan on building one character generator ourselves. And it'll probably be for a simple game. I used Shadow Dark as an example before because it's popular, it's simple. I own it, and we'll probably build it that way. And that's what you think of from a character generator, where it's following a rules engine. It's saying, oh, if you choose this race or this class, this is what comes after. You know, that's how it'll happen. Now, with all of this said, the other nice thing what we're doing is we believe in open source stuff. So we're going to then take that character generator and those definition files I mentioned and make them open source. So they'll be in a platform called GitHub, which you guys may or may not be familiar with.
Yeah.
And you'll be able to go in there and sort by all the game systems, and you'll see Stars Without Number, you'll see Shadow Dark, and you'll see those definition files. You'll see, is there a character generator? You'll see that kind of thing. And then as a developer, I can go in and say, I don't own, or I'm interested in Shadow Dark, but I also have an adjacent game system I want a character generator for. So I'm going to copy that character generator, and I'm going to make one for a similar game system. Like an example is Call of Cthulhu and Delta Green. They're very adjacent, right? They use the same game system in the background. So that's in a nutshell, really complicated way of saying those are the different ways we're going to support it. And we're hoping the community helps us get character generators for various game systems, because it's too much work for us to build them all. The thousands that are out there. So Harmony, I hope that answered your question.
That answered one of my questions, actually.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
that I had planned. So I don't have to ask it anymore. But I do want to ask, like, as far as the social features, will you have some sort of like forum feature or whatever, where you can maybe like find these people that, you know, somebody can advertise themselves like, hey, I know how to do this JSON stuff. I know how to do like mess with the API and like whatever. And like you as a creator, like, hey, I want like a character generator made for my game. Like I can just go into your inbuilt social system and like find somebody that can do that, rather than having to rely on friends, because, you know, we're nerds, we don't always have friends.
That's right. We did have plans, and when I say did, that sounds like past tense, but what I mean to say is we have plans to build a social landing page for these items. And the reason I'm saying it that way is that it's not part of our go live plan at the moment. As you guys know, I have a multi-page Google Doc right now that is everything that's got to be done to go live. We call it, in the programming world, you guys may use the term also, it's minimally viable product. What do we have to have done to go live? By the way, e-commerce isn't part of that. That's phase one after it, is to get the e-commerce portion done. Phase or MVP, we're considering matchmaking and characters as to be able to go live at that point. So yeah, we definitely want to have a social landing page because we want to make sure that they're having a great discussion. Also, we're going to have a Discord channel built around the same thing so that people can get on and say, hey, I'm trying to build this character generator and it's not working. How do I roll dice? And they inform them, well, you have to have the 3D dice associated with it. You have to do that kind of thing. So that's the plan there.
Yeah, even just a Discord, like you said, Discord server with like maybe a specific channel for like, API programmers, like that would be very useful, I think.
Yep. And speaking of APIs, I know Harmony mentioned that a second ago. We plan on having open, we call them open APIs, but that's not really technically the term for it, but it is APIs that any user can get to their stuff. So in other words, as part of characters, you'll have what we call in programming world CRUD, create, read, update, delete characters through a programmatic interface. So as long as you have a way to authenticate yourself into your characters through that programmatic interface, you can make changes to your characters or add and remove them. Same with games. So if you have a bunch of scheduled games as a dungeon master, but you have a different way of managing those games, you could actually update those games via an API. So it's kind of what we call an API first approach, where we're trying to build those APIs into the system from the beginning to manipulate everything in our system. And then we'll expose those APIs to people on the site. Now, that'll probably be through a subscription rather than just open to everybody, or we will allow certain ones to be opened and others not. And there's a reason for that, and that's all about once you get a program involved, they can hammer your APIs. And we want to limit those and make sure that we know who's hitting them. We want to not do a denial of service attack and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why we may put it behind a subscription. We just have to, I think that's probably what we'll end up doing. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Greg, you've been kind of quiet. Do you have anything?
Well, they've answered a lot of the questions that I had, such as their time frame and their project. I guess their project outline. Like, what are you going to complete first? How far along are you? Percentage wise, do you have like any estimates on when you could be getting to a functional launch? So
yeah, thanks for asking that question. So let me tell you guys, it's kind of interesting how we're funding this. So first of all, I told T-shirt here that we wanted to be a B Corp, a certified B Corp, where we do social good, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the company we want to be. You've heard that we want to be open on our APIs and everything else, and we want to build this for the community. So the way we're funding this is, yes, this isn't my full-time job, but what I do is I resell developers. So when we place developers at a company, we get a percentage of that money, and it goes right into this. So I was just told by my co-founder this morning that we're about to place 8 developers, which will earn us about $10,000 a month. That'll go straight into building this. We've already been building it, by the way, since about February of this last year, but this allows us to bring on some more developers. So right now we've got 3 part-time developers working on this, and that'll probably take us to 4 full-time developers to be able to work on this, which will greatly accelerate us. So that's some background there of what we're doing. We were hoping that my news of the 8 developers was coming the beginning of last month in October. So I'm guessing right now that MVP for us will probably go live probably the end of Q1. I was hoping for January, but I think it's the end of Q1 now is my best bet. How much we've got done today, that's we've got login, social media logins, so you can log in with Google, Twitch, Apple, that kind of thing. We've got that. We've got the ability to schedule games. We have the ability in schedule. By the way, most of my time on programming went to scheduled games because we want to make it kick ass. So you can schedule a game that's searchable by zip code. So if you want to play local or if you want to play online, let's see. You can also you can make that game open. You can make that game password protected. You can make that game application based, so that you can you ask them a question essentially, and they have to answer the question, and then you can fill up a queue and then say, "Oh, I like this guy's answer. He can join." You know, that kind of thing. You can say, "I'm a professional GM," and I can use. By the way, professional GM can be stacked on any of those types. So you can be a professional GM with an application game. And then you can do an invite or a friends only game, which is just like what you know in Xbox, know and love. And then you can also do invite only game where you actually type in email addresses or from your friends list who you want. And then when you schedule the game, they get an invite and they can join. So that's all done. That's working. And let's see what else on that. And inside of that, it's got a ton of settings, so you can set up everything about your game, including what tools you're using. And it's rather than getting into safety things and stuff, we have a special rules area. So we've got a description, and then we've got a special rules area. And we call out in the special rules area, hey, you might bring up any kind of safety things or session zeros you're going to conduct before you play or those kind of things.
Good deal.
Yeah, but we're not going to shove it in your face and tell you this is what you need to do, that kind of stuff. You can also set up the age appropriateness. You can say this is for kids, this is for teens, this is for mature only, this is adults only, that kind of stuff. And then let's see, anything else on that? No, I think that's it. By the way, once the scheduled game comes over, this is completed also. Once the game concludes, the page flips over and suddenly shows you everybody in the game where you're able to then review each member of the game. And the review is giving them thumbs up, thumbs down. Were they at the game? Did they schedule themselves and not show up? And you can mark them as not showing up. You can vote them MVP. You can also leave comments in it, all that kind of stuff. And then we have a gamification stats system where you as a player or as a GM, the more games you run, you move up in ranks. Your character levels up, so to speak. So the more games you run, the higher level you get. The more new players you have, the higher your level might be. Those kind of things. This is all based off of an old site we brought up in the last podcast about Neverwinter Connections.
I know that site. I remember.
Do you really?
I was a huge Neverwinter Nights fan when I was in high school. I'm sorry.
My gosh.
That was the point when I was like, all right, I'm invested.
Yeah. So that was my claim. My 15 minutes of fame that was my website that was hosted by BioWare and everything else, and we're recreating a lot of that here. So that's all done. The campaign system is 99% done, the one I described there, with notes and everything else. And then, man, I could just go on. Characters are done other than character generator. We got more of the definition of those JSON files to do, like I was saying, like dice and formatting of that JSON. We've got all of that finished. And then I'll tell you something else we built in the background that I didn't bring up to in the last podcast here is we also have coming, but I doubt we're done with, we're not going to hold up MVP for this, but I have an event system that I built. and I'm pretty excited about it. And you're probably thinking, what the hell is an event system? But it's your ability to run conventions online or in person. Like if you're a game store and you've got 5 tables, you want to run something Friday night, you can set it up on our event system and say, let people schedule those tables, invite GMs to those tables. You can say we're running 2 blocks. You can say you're running, like if you were Gen Con, you could say we're running it between 6 different convention centers with this many rooms, with this many tables in each room. And you can say, I need this many GMs, I need this many players, and so forth. So that's our event system that's coming as well. And then you'll be able to advertise your events as you would expect, on the front page and things like that. So
nice. Yeah. Got a couple of questions out of the audience. Oh, go ahead, Jeremy.
Can I go first? Okay. You were talking about the looking for group system. There's been a recent controversy around people using filters like race or other identity categories in their looking for group systems. Are you going to allow that? If it's an open system, how would you not allow that?
Yeah, that is a new controversy. Yeah,
it's a bit of a thorny area. So I'm just curious how you're going to address that.
Yeah, so 2 things we have in the profile section that's done now is your ability to put your identity in there that says I'm a veteran or I'm gay or you're able to put those. And we've got something like 40 different identifiers in there. I can't remember the exact number. And then you've also got the ability to list your pronouns or opt out of listing your pronouns. You can do either or. Now, I had it in the back of my head that I was going to allow you to find games based off those identity things and filter those games. I had that in my head, but I now see a landmine in front of me for doing that. I would never filter by race, religion, and things like that. That's one thing we will not tolerate is hatred, discrimination on race, discrimination on anything like that. We want, by the way, one of the big things we want to support is deaf players as well. We want to actually have the ability for you to call out your languages, your sign language, that kind of stuff. So we want to have filtering based off of that. But I don't have a great answer for you on this one because we obviously have to be careful about it. We're firm believers in being inclusive for everybody, and so we have to navigate it carefully. But now you guys know my thoughts and my plan, and I would love to hear from the community what we should do there. Unfortunately, we don't have much of a community yet, so that makes asking people difficult. But we need to answer this. I think for MVP, in a way, we don't have to have filtering by any of that to begin with, because you can find a game based off of, hey, I want to play Shadow Dark or Stars Without Number, Worlds Without Number. I want to find games that are like that, and I want a pro GM or I don't want a pro GM, or I want a zip code. There's a lot of ways to filter today. I want it to be mature. I don't want it to be mature. And that might be enough. Maybe we forego the identity thing for MVP and figure that out later.
Yeah, and I would just, if I can just step in here, I think our whole goal of the site is to not necessarily make it so the community can segregate themselves. We're trying to bring everybody together. Mm-hmm. So with that kind of, goal or vision, right? We believe that, if we can get the whole world playing TTRPGs, the world would be a better place. And so with that kind of in mind, that's how we're going to try to build the site. And, there's going to be issues there. Whenever you gather people, there's going to be issues, and we'll deal with that as it comes. But that's kind of what our vision is.
So speaking of support, obviously a complex system like this on a small team can run into a major brick wall. What are your plans for support? What is your customer service structure going to look like?
Well, at the beginning, it's going to be primarily through one, it's going to be Discord. So that's one of the first things. Second thing is,
I'm sorry, Sean. Let me bust in real quick.
Yeah.
Wade, if you wouldn't check the private chat. Yeah, I know you guys do have a Discord, so I want to be able to put that up for everybody.
Yeah, good point. The next thing is that we have a capability that you can mark people. You can say this person harassed me, or everywhere throughout the site you can report that kind of stuff, especially on the reviews. And we have a system where that'll come in and tell us about it, and then we'll jump right out and investigate it right away and understand it. And if they're on our Discord, we'll probably reach out to the person who reported it and ask a bunch of questions. Now, obviously, there's a scaling problem with all of that. And all these companies have a hard time scaling with that. And we've got to learn that process. High-end companies, Facebooks and others, they actually will contract out to a company like Teleperformance. They have an entire arm of that company that deals with this kind of stuff. So in the grand scheme of things, at the other end of the spectrum, if we end up getting huge, we're going to have to go with a group like that. But until then, we're going to have people report it. We're going to investigate it. We're going to talk to the groups involved. We're going to ban people. We're going to do all of that. So again, harassment is the big one. So
I mean, not necessarily like harassment, banning, stuff like that, but actual technical functionality.
I see.
Yeah, because with so many moving parts, like I'm just thinking of a few of the smaller startups that have come out in the RPG world recently that are really struggling to satisfy, their customers' demands. Problems come up. It takes weeks, months to fix. Like, is it just going to be? Obviously you're going to have developers, but are you going to have like a dedicated like customer service team for like tackling like technical challenges?
Well, I'll be honest. At the beginning, I don't think we will. I think we will have, just because the team's going to be small at the beginning until we get some subscriptions rolling in. But I think we can have these developers. We can have one of them devoted to that conversation at all times. And we can also have them monitoring Discord channels for that as well. But yeah, that's something that could be an issue for us. Just being transparent, we've got to figure that out. It's not an easy thing to solve necessarily. No. Thanks for bringing that up, Aries.
No problem.
All right. Does anybody got anything else? Or?
Well, you mentioned some from the chat, so we should probably give them priority.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. Running back through the chat. I'm kind of trying to flip a couple of plates here. Okay, yeah, Patty's got a good one. I like this one too. Is there a way to have the API work with streaming apps like OBS? In particular, since a lot of us use StreamYard, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, there's absolutely no reason we couldn't have. So an API generally isn't restricted in any way by what calls it. Anybody can call the API as long as you're authenticated to it. So as long as you, sorry, I'm going to get nerdy here. As long as you embed a authentication token in it, into your API, and then you're calling an API that has is associated with that token. So in other words, I can't use my token to see your characters, right? So as long as you're calling in with a token that, matter of fact, you can share a token. So I can copy, like if we were all to jump into Discord and Harmony sent me her token, I could then put that into my OBS stream and then pull in characters. Her characters. I could also, we're also going to have a campaign API. And so as long as her characters are part of that campaign and she's part of the campaign, I as a GM can, or a player, I can use those tokens and I can use OBS to call out to those to get the data from that. I can call an NPC back API with an idea. Sorry, I can't speak today. An ID of that NPC as part of the pass in there, and I can get back the details about that NPC and the notes associated with it, that kind of thing. So, so yes, you could use it for OBS. Now, the one We may have to make some custom ones, and this is where we'd love to hear from the community in Discord or whatever that says, hey, this is what we would like to show, and how it would work in the stream so that we can decide, is the stream, all right, I'm going to get nerdy again. Is it a WebSocket stream? Do we need a webhook for it? Basically, it's about how live of an interaction is it? Is OBS querying for something, or is it having a constant communication back and forth? Those are the kinds of things we'd need to know so that we can set up the API endpoint correctly. So, but yeah, we could definitely, there's no reason another system like that couldn't call it. None whatsoever. Good question.
So,
go ahead.
I was just going to ask, can I just confirm my understanding of this? Let's say I am an RPG developer and I have developed a brand new system. I have PDFs I've written out. I haven't published anywhere. From what I understand on your site, I can publish and sell my work. I should be able to independently either contract a friend or myself code in character sheets that will roll to programs like Foundry through what was the DICE website?
3D Dice. Yep.
3D Dice, yeah. And is that all accurate?
I would say, okay, let me alter a couple of things what you said. So you can use Adobe Acrobat to create a form fillable PDF, so you don't have to program that. So you can, people can simply do that. Second thing is that the PDFs on our site won't necessarily be able to be used in Foundry. Foundry, I've used Foundry, love Foundry, shout out to Foundry. But Foundry, I don't think, unless there's a plugin, which they have a lot of plugins, it won't natively take in a PDF necessarily. Most of them are mods that so it won't do that. Now, with that said, though, I wanted to point out something. Our other dream about our site is that we become a centralized hub for VTTs to tie into our APIs at no cost. And the reason is I'm a programmer, and I know if I was building a VTT, I don't want to deal with, I'm going to pick on Stars Without Number. I don't want to deal with building a character sheet for Stars Without Number, right? I want to build the cool factor of how I represent the role playing and combat and everything else. That's what I want to focus on. I don't want to build characters. I don't want to build, because you guys know there's thousands of RPGs out there, and they're only going to support, let's say, 40 of them. At the beginning, they're going to support 2, and we know which 2 those are. And then they're going to expand, and then people are going to support, I think the last time I looked at Foundry, which was about a year to 2 years ago, it was about 40 game systems. They're probably way past that now. But that's still like a 1% of the overall market. And so what we'd like to do is say, hey, guys at Foundry, stop building those systems for characters. And I know this is wishful thinking, but and instead just tie into our APIs, and you can pull in Delta Green, you can pull in any of these games character sheets and show them inside your system. Or especially if they have, remember I talked about the 3 different levels, form fillable PDFs and then the JSON. Our JSON definition will be open source. So they can pull in those JSON templates and the data that fills those templates. So that's one of our big draws there, is to get that done. So we won't natively, Harmony, that we won't natively support Foundry out of the box. Eventually we might have some plugins that work with Foundry and stuff, but it'll be, in most cases, VTTs, they'll have to hook into us, especially at the beginning. But 5 years from now, I could see us having plugins for all of them. So,
okay.
One thing I definitely would like to see is if you guys can get a hold of something as big as I should say mammoth as a hero system or GURPS, because there's so many different permutations possible with both of those, because they're just, I mean, it's just a massive engine with so many plugins and stuff that, building a character is daunting in one of those systems to begin with. much less keeping track of it all.
Yep, absolutely. Our plan for creating character generators is to start small at the easiest one. Like I used, what we could have done is, what's the game system called? Mini D6 or Tiny D6? That's probably the smallest one we could do, a character generator using Tiny D6. So maybe I'll switch to that one, but we'd make one for that. And then every system that uses Tiny D6, we could make a copy of that one, alter it slightly for each game system. Then we would move up to that. Maybe it's the OSR system and make one that works for one, and then copy it across Dungeon Crawler Classics and everything else. Then move up from there. And obviously the granddaddies at the top are, Dungeons and Dragons 5e, Pathfinder, it's GURPS, it's Traveler, it's, those, we would eventually get up to those because it's such a huge effort to make character generators for those gigantic systems. Mm-hmm. It's overwhelming. That's why D&D Beyond is so valuable to 5e players, right? I mean, that's why people use it, is to create a character, because it's complex. Yeah.
This is just kind of like a wish fulfillment kind of thing I would love. But we are starting to see a lot of Japanese games making their way over here. Grim and I, we've both looked at Konosuba, and we've looked at Goblin Slayer, the RPG. They're very simple little D6 based RPGs. I don't know how difficult it would be to get licenses or anything like that for these, but it would be really cool to get those things and to, let larger audiences know that those things exist and that that they're available.
Yep.
Yeah,
I agree. What I'd like to do is, prior to us going to MVP, is opening this up to you, the content creators, to say, hey, if you've got a game system and you want to put it on our site and you want to have a landing page for your game system, here's the login. We'll verify you. You now have that landing page. You can upload your PDFs. You can do all that stuff. And then I mentioned to you last podcast that part of the gamification system is that if you run... If you play in a game that you haven't played in before, like Tiny D6, this specific version of it, you get 500 extra XP, experience points. If you, as a GM, run a game that's this, you get more experience points, to try to push people in that fashion. And then we want to come up with other ways to bring forth those systems to the forefront, so people are aware of them. Whenever a new one gets added, we bring that forward, and etc. We haven't figured all that out yet. We don't have all the answers, but that's our goal, is that these exceptional systems that are hidden to the community, the larger community, I should say, get found. That's our goal. So yeah, I've got sitting on, show and tell, I've got Scum and Villainy sitting here. I've got a lot sitting on my desk. But yeah, there's a lot of great systems.
Yeah, we might see Modern Necessities on there sometime.
Yeah, who knows?
For me, as a one-man band publisher, a lot of this seems kind of daunting. There's a lot of time pressure already. If it's just you working on projects, finding time to do anything can be tough. Margins are thin. So getting my systems up on there in a useful fashion feels like too much extra work. After everything else. Yeah. I'll have to rely on the community's charity, I think, to do those sorts of things.
So if you were to come to us, what we would do to help you is we would put your game system into our database. So the game system would go in, title, description, and then we might say, hey, can you shoot us over your form fillable PDFs? We'll upload them for you. We can put them in, that kind of thing. And then at that point, with those little bit of information, your game system is now schedulable, if that's a word. People can now start using that game system, and there's now a landing page for your game system there. and then you can see how many people are running it. You can see how many scheduled games, how many DMs or players have marked it as their favorite game system, one of their favorites, not, it's all that kind of stuff. So you'll be able to see that. So that's the minimum level for you to do. That obviously the next levels are really the parts you're talking about. Is like, JSON, what?
Yeah.
Character generator, yeah, what? Yeah, that's where, coming back to the idea before, is having this social page where you can say, can someone help me do this? That's hopefully that can enable people like you who are a one-man band. So, but yeah, that's the idea. I'm sorry, go ahead, Victor.
Well, that's why my question was like, because you talked about like the difficulty steps. Like, my question was like, yeah, can you upload just like a simple like form fillable PDF for your game and just leave it at that if you want? So yeah, I mean, that's like a lot lower threshold. Like I can make that in Affinity Publisher, like like pretty easily myself.
Yep.
So
and you can upload more than one, and you can also version them. So go ahead. No. I'm sorry.
Will there be a landing page by publisher or only by game system? Because from my point of view, it would be nice for me to be able to see which of my games are up and the stats for them together.
Oh yeah, interesting.
Rather than necessarily system by system. Plus, it might be good for people who, I really liked this game. What else have they done?
Yeah, that's awesome. See, that's the perspective that you guys are bringing to me is that point of view. I see no reason not to do publisher. Right now we've got, so I'll tell you our long-term plans. Right now we've got game system and we've got game platform, because we don't have a better word for it at the moment, but game platform is like Roll20, Foundry, it's Tailspire, it's all the VTTs and other tools. Like I use Zoom when I game, that kind of thing. So those are the two divisions we have. We've had thoughts like, let's also have the other creators in the community. Podcasters have their own channel or their own landing pages. Actual Play have their landing pages as well, to just try to bring everybody together. But I love that you brought up the publisher idea, that we weren't thinking that way. So I've actually taken a note off to the side here, and we want it to be, there's a relationship, obviously, game publisher to game systems. And then if we haven't thought of something, obviously evidenced by this, if we haven't thought of another relationship a publisher might have, that would be great to hear from you guys, that, we also have these. Those are the kinds of things we're looking for, because it's that kind of stuff. It actually isn't that hard to program, believe it or not. So we've already got a model for it, so it's not too bad.
And another thing that's pretty cool, just through this being kind of a hub, as a new publisher, every time you do a new game, you yourself could start running the first games and get some feedback, which I think is actually really cool and unique, to be able to get your games kind of rolling and get that word of mouth out. So excited for that opportunity as well.
Yeah.
Just another publisher perspective. Finding play testers is always a nightmare.
Oh yeah.
So the ability to host and run still in development games would be something that would be useful.
Big time.
Yeah, we can. That's a great idea. We can definitely support that. We have game type. So when you go to schedule a game, you can say this is a one shot. This is a campaign. You can also say this is a instructional game. It's beginner friendly and it's an instructional game. So we're going to teach you how to play this game system. But we can add that as another one, as play testing with a description of still in development. So we could definitely do that. And then we ought to think past that too and say, is there a way to elevate play tested games in a fashion that gets people in and excited? Like maybe playtesting games get a landing page that talks about all the things you're looking for. This is what we're after. This is what you get if you playtest, which could be a copy of the PDF. This is what all that stuff. So We could do something like that.
I mean, you mentioned gamification. You could give people like double points if they join the playtest or something.
Exactly.
Yeah, we actually, through a different podcast came up with that idea. Newer games, if you go try a brand new game, you're going to get more XP, and I think even more for playtesting and helping out the community. That definitely makes sense.
Just a good note of that. Yeah. Awesome. I love that. Thank you for all these suggestions.
We're up on time. I do want to get this one last question out of the way. This is from the audience, and it's from a really good friend of our channel here. This is Patty's Parlor. He says, will there be tracking about what systems are being played and how often? I figure there will be, but...
Yeah, I have to say, out of your sentence, we're probably missing how often. We're tracking the games. You'll be able to go out to the site and say, this is the kind of game I'm after, all of this. But one of the things we've wanted to have, and this is kind of related to tracking, is obviously there's a wealth of information in the background of a site like this from a publisher's perspective, and everything else is the graphs around who's playing what, everything else. So we've thought about that. We haven't included that in our MVP. We're obviously tracking all that in a database. We just haven't made plans for it. But we could absolutely show a trending page, those kind of things. So example is, you could go out to a page and say which games are trending up and down. We could show things like that. I want to make sure that we're doing it right, though. We don't want to. What I mean by that is we don't want to dissuade people from playing games under a certain thing because they're trending downwards, that kind of stuff. So if I'm hesitating, it's only for those. I think I'm thinking through all of that, but we can definitely show those stats. We just have to figure out what stats to show at a publisher level and what stats to show at a gamer level or a dungeon master level. Those kind of things.
Yeah, because I'm of two minds of it. Like, it could be useful to see how much your game has been played, but it could also be very embarrassing as a creator. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and we all know a fact of the matter is if our site had every game system out there, I'm going to throw out a number. I don't know how many there are. 5,000. The majority of those are going to be showing no movement in the last X number of weeks, days, months, years, whatever. So yeah, we want to make sure that we're showing, hey, you ought to try this game. There's people playing this, but we also don't want to call out, hey, by the way, Victor, your game hasn't been played in a year and a half. You know,
not even by myself.
So.
Yeah, well, and I think it just depends on who we show that to, right? Positive things go out to the community. If there's anything that the creator wants to look at, we can definitely keep that more private. So if you're looking at your games, you can say, hey, how is this one doing? Oh, not doing very well, or maybe it's not as great as I want to be. How can I kind of boost this up and maybe start scheduling some games and whatnot?
Yeah.
All right. Well, like I said, we're up on our hour. I want to thank you for coming out and hanging out with us again and getting some serious questions and Q&A with us. And I'm really looking forward to this. I think it'll be really great. Good.
Yeah. I love being here and I love getting your guys' perspective. It's fantastic. So thank you very much for having us. I want to reach out to you guys as we get closer to MVP to get your guys' direct feedback and let you guys get access to it and set up some things. So yeah, alltherpgs.com. We accept beta, sign up for beta on there and everything. And then you guys saw our Discord link, I think. Our Discord's really damn boring at the moment.
Make it more fun. I've noticed there's a few questions here that we didn't quite get to, so you can join our Discord.
Yeah,
ask questions there. We'll respond. It may not be on the same day or whatever, but let's get the conversation going and rolling.
And we do have screenshots and everything else out on our Discord, although they haven't been updated in a while because we've been really heads down with our developers on this stuff. So, but yeah, getting some conversations started out there would be great. And we really want, I have to emphasize this, we really want the various viewpoints. Your questions about publishers is invaluable to us, especially you content creators. Just hearing from your perspective what would help you is absolutely invaluable, because I'm not a content creator. I'm a programmer and a longtime gamer, but that is not the same as being a content creator / publisher. It's totally different ball game. So we want to do right by you guys. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Also, just
Thanks for having me.
Last little plug here. Go follow us on Twitter, AllTheRPGS, at AllTheRPGS. There you can find our Discord link to the site. We're also on Blue Sky. Yeah, follow us along and join us for the journey. Help us build this right.
Yeah, I think this is really cool. The fact that this is kind of maybe not a completely 100% grassroots kind of movement, but the fact that this is kind of like coming from the bottom as it is, and it doesn't feel corporate. It doesn't feel managed by, big Hasbro or anything. I like this because it feels like it's something that's more homegrown, more genuine, and I think long term it'll be a lot better for those of us who are, kind of trying to shy away from stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, thank you for hanging out with us. And hey, can I say, tune in tomorrow when we do Grim and his Broken Shields game.
Yep.
Another
one shot.
Another one shot.
Another obscure game. Yeah.
There you go. And of course, join us on Tuesday when we have the lovely Harmony and Ironcaster, and no doubt we'll find something interesting to talk about. But until then, y'all have a wonderful week in Geek.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks for the interview.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
On behalf of the staff of the Independent California Motel, I wish you all sweet dreams.
subway of life. How do you look at the subway of life?
Wake the fuck up, samurai. We have a city to burn.